The dinner was perfect. I had spent hours on it, hands dusted with flour, back aching, mind counting minutes, the way I always did when I cooked for him. Fresh mozzarella layered into homemade lasagna the way Ethan liked it. Basil clipped from the tiny garden we'd planted together the first summer after we married. Garlic bread warming the whole house, filling it with the kind of smell that was supposed to mean home. We had been married for 9 years. 9 years of routines, of rhythms, of believing I knew when to speak and when to stay quiet. I timed everything so the lasagna would come out of the oven at exactly 6:30 p.m., the time Ethan usually came home from his consulting firm. I didn't wait by the door anymore. I had learned, months ago, that greeting him too eagerly irritated him. Made him feel pressured, he'd said. Smothered. So I sat at the dining table instead. At 7:45 p.m., I heard his car pull into the driveway. I stayed seated, watching my plate grow cold, watching his plate do the same. The candles burned low, their wax curling like quiet questions I already knew better than to ask. He walked in laughing, phone pressed to his ear. "No, you didn't, Lena. That's insane," he said, voice light, relaxed. Okay, tomorrow. Yeah, bye." He ended the call as he stepped into the kitchen, and for half a second his smile flickered when he saw me sitting there. Not guilt, not surprise. It was the look someone gets when they remember an errand they forgot. Something mildly annoying, something inconvenient. "You made dinner," he said. Not a question, not gratitude, just an observation. "I did," I replied, gesturing to his plate. "It's still warm." He set his briefcase on the counter instead of the chair I'd cleared for it. He'd been doing that lately, keeping everything ready for quick exits. "I already ate," he said casually. Lena and I grabbed Thai food while finishing the Apex pitch. Lena, his coworker, the one he called his work partner. His work wife, when he thought it was funny. "You could have texted," I said carefully, keeping my voice even. Showing hurt only ever made me the problem. He scrolled his phone. "Oh, guess I forgot." Then he grabbed a sparkling water, already turning away. "Actually, I'm heading back out. Networking thing downtown. Big opportunity." I looked at him, the man I had built my life around, and felt something shift inside my chest. "What time will you be home?" I asked. The wrong question. His eyes went cold. "I don't know," he snapped. "Why? Do I need permission now?" And that was the moment, the exact irreversible moment, I realized my marriage was already over. I just hadn't caught up to it yet. My name is Linda Karishma. I'm 36 years old, and until the night of that dinner, I would have described myself the same way I always did when people asked about my life. Careful, stable, ordinary. The kind of woman who remembered birthdays without needing calendar reminders. The kind who folded laundry while listening to podcasts, who packed an extra umbrella in the car because you never knew when the sky would change its mind. I teach chemistry at a public high school. It's not glamorous, and no one claps when I walk into a room, but I've always liked the quiet logic of it, the comfort of knowing that if you combine the right elements in the right conditions, something predictable happens, a reaction you can explain, a truth you can repeat. Marriage, I learned, does not work that way. I met Ethan when I was 26. A friend had dragged me to a fundraiser dinner I didn't want to attend. One of those events where the wine tastes expensive and the conversations taste fake. I remember standing near a table of brochures, pretending to read them, when Ethan appeared beside me like he belonged there. He was confident in a way that felt effortless. Tall, neat, charming in that polished city man way. He made a joke about the bland chicken entree, and I laughed too hard because I was relieved someone was saying something real. "I'm Ethan," he said, holding his hand out like meeting me mattered. "Linda," I replied, and when our palms touched, something warm moved through me. Something simple, stupid, hopeful. He asked me questions, real ones. Not just what I did for work, but why I liked it, what I wanted my life to look like, what I missed from childhood. He listened in a way that made me feel like I was worth listening to. For the first year, I thought I'd found the rare thing people talk about, like it's a myth. He brought coffee to my classroom on mornings when I was grading late. He kissed my forehead in the kitchen while I stirred pasta sauce. He held my hand under restaurant tables like he couldn't help it. When he proposed, he did it on a quiet weekend trip. No crowd, no cameras, just him and a ring he chose thoughtfully, trembling slightly when he slid it onto my finger. "You're my calm," he whispered. "You make everything feel like home." I believed him. We married the following spring, a small ceremony. My mother cried. Ethan's family smiled for pictures like they were posing for a magazine. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the life. I'm safe now. And for a while it was good. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but good in the way that matters. Sunday mornings in bed, grocery runs where we argued playfully about cereal brands, movie nights where he fell asleep halfway through and I tucked the blanket around his shoulders because doing small, loving things felt like breathing. But somewhere around year 5, Ethan's career started to climb fast. Promotions, bigger clients, later nights, more calls during dinner, more, sorry babe, just 10 minutes, that turned into an hour. At first I told myself it was temporary, a busy season, a hurdle, something we'd get past. Then his language changed. He started saying my schedule instead of our plans. He started treating my time like it was flexible by default. When I asked if we could take a weekend trip, he'd sigh, like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. When I tried to talk about us, about how distant he'd become, he'd accuse me of overthinking. You're being sensitive, he'd say. You're making problems out of nothing. You don't understand pressure, Linda. Not the kind I'm under. And I'd swallow the sting because I didn't want to be the needy wife, the clingy wife, the wife who didn't support her husband's ambitions. I learned to adjust, to be easier, to wait. That was the subtle tragedy of it. I didn't notice the marriage changing because I was the one doing most of the changing. And then Lena arrived. Ethan didn't tell me about her like she was just another coworker. He told me about her like she was a new discovery. She's sharp, he said one night, smiling at his phone. Finally, someone who can keep up. I remember laughing like it was nothing. But something in my chest tightened anyway, because I recognized that tone. It was the tone Ethan used when something excited him. And lately, that tone wasn't for me. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. That's what women like me do. We rationalize discomfort until it becomes background noise. We explain away the tightness in our chest. We translate intuition into something more polite, more reasonable. Lena was just a coworker. That was the story I repeated to myself, while Ethan's phone began to light up more often in the evenings. While his laughter drifted from the hallway after midnight, soft and private, like it didn't belong to our house. He started carrying his phone everywhere. Bathroom, shower, even to the other side of the couch. If I glanced at the screen, he'd tilt it away without thinking. Muscle memory. Not dramatic, just instinctive. Once, when I asked who he was texting so late, he didn't even look up. Work, he said. Deadlines don't care what time it is. I nodded. I always nodded. The dinners stopped being ours. Sometimes he'd text at 6:10, saying he'd already eaten with the team. Sometimes he'd come home smelling like wine and something sharper, cologne that wasn't his. When I asked, he laughed it off. Client dinners, relax. I tried, but the house began to feel different. Quieter somehow, not peaceful, emptier. Like the walls were holding their breath. Like the silence had learned my name. His family noticed before I did. One Sunday afternoon, his mother pulled me aside in the kitchen while Ethan was on a call outside. He's working so hard, she said, voice smooth but pointed. You have to be patient with men like him. Ambition can be demanding. I smiled, the practiced one that didn't reach my eyes. I am patient, I said. She nodded, satisfied. Good. A woman's support can make or break a man's success. I didn't argue. I never did with his family. They had a way of framing everything as my responsibility without ever saying it outright. His friends weren't subtler. At a company party, one of them clapped Ethan on the back and said, Man, I don't know how you juggle all this. Work, social life, marriage. Ethan laughed. You get used to it. I stood there holding my drink, feeling like an accessory to my own relationship. And Lena, she was everywhere without ever being present. Her name slipped into conversations casually. Her opinions quoted like facts. Her jokes repeated at our dinner table like they belonged there. Lena says the market's about to flip, Ethan said once, not even noticing I hadn't asked. Lena thinks this client's a waste of time. Lena and I stayed late again. Always Lena and I. Not we, not us. One night I tried to talk. Not accuse, not cry, just talk. Do you feel like we've been distant lately? I asked, sitting across from him on the couch. Like we're not really here together? He didn't look up from his laptop. You're reading into things. I'm just asking. And I'm telling you, he snapped, finally glancing at me, you're creating problems where there aren't any. I don't have time for this insecurity, Linda. That word, insecurity, landed like a verdict. I apologized. Of course I did. I said I was tired. That work had been stressful. That I was overthinking. Later that night, I lay awake listening to him breathe beside me, steady and distant. His phone buzzed once on the nightstand. He reached for it instantly, turning away from me. I stared at the ceiling and wondered something I'd never allowed myself to ask before. If nothing was wrong, why did I feel so alone? The doubt didn't explode all at once. It crept. It settled into the corners of my life, quiet but persistent, in the pauses between his words, in the way he stopped asking about my day, in how my presence seemed to irritate him, not because I was doing something wrong, but because I was there at all. And the worst part? I still loved him, which made every unanswered question feel like a small, private betrayal, one I kept committing against myself. The night everything broke didn't begin with shouting. It began with effort. I had come home early that afternoon, my bag still slung over my shoulder, chalk dust clinging to my sleeves. I went straight to the kitchen and started cooking without sitting down, without checking my phone. I needed my hands busy. I needed to feel useful in a way that still made sense. Lasagna, from scratch, Ethan's favorite. I told myself it wasn't about saving the marriage. It was just dinner, just food, just two people eating together like they used to. But I still checked the clock obsessively, still timed everything so it would be ready at 6:30, the hour his car usually turned into our driveway. By 7, the lasagna was cooling. By 7:30, the candles were melting into waxy puddles. At 7:45, I heard the familiar crunch of tires outside. I stayed seated. I had learned better. Ethan walked in laughing, phone pressed to his ear, his voice lighter than I'd heard it in weeks. "No, you didn't, Lena. That's insane," he said, grinning. "Tomorrow? Yeah, okay." When he stepped into the kitchen and saw me, his smile flickered. Just for a moment. "You made dinner," he said. "I did," I replied. My voice sounded calm, even to me. "It's still warm." He set his briefcase on the counter, not on the chair I'd cleared. A small thing, a loud one. "I already ate," he said. Lena and I grabbed Thai food while wrapping up the Apex pitch. There it was again, her name. Slid into my home like it belonged. "You could have texted," I said carefully. He scrolled his phone. "I forgot. We were deep in strategy mode. Time just disappeared." He opened the fridge, grabbed a sparkling water, already halfway turned away. "Actually, I'm heading back out. There's a networking thing downtown, Apex Club. Whole team's meeting a potential client." "A nightclub?" I asked. His chin lifted immediately, defensive. "That's where the client wanted to meet. This is huge, Linda. Some of us are still climbing." Some of us. I felt the comparison even though he didn't say it out loud. Him, ambitious, visible, important. Me, finished with work by 4, summers off, proud of lab equipment approvals. "What time will you be home?" I asked. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew. His eyes went cold. "I don't know," he snapped. "Whenever we're done networking. Why? Do I need permission now?" "I'm not saying that. Just what?" He laughed, sharp and bitter. "Making sure I'm being a good little husband? Making sure I'm not having too much fun without you." He set the can down hard on the counter. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. This needy energy. I'm out there building something real, and I come home to you sitting here like an abandoned puppy, making food I didn't ask for, staring at me like I've done something wrong because I actually have a life." The words hit in waves. Needy, puppy, a life. "I thought we could eat together," I said softly. "Talk. We haven't really talked in weeks." "Oh my God," he scoffed. "There it is. The guilt trip. I work 10-hour days, Linda. I'm trying to advance my career, and somehow that makes me the villain, because you're at home feeling neglected." "I'm not sitting in the dark," I said, which was stupid, defensive, wrong. He grabbed his jacket. "I need to change. My ride will be here in 20 minutes. He took 2 steps toward the stairs, then stopped. Turned back, and something in his face hardened into something final. "If you don't like how I live my life," he said slowly, deliberately, "then leave." The room went silent. "Ethan," I said, my heart pounding. "No, I'm serious." He stepped closer. For a split second, I thought he might take it back. He didn't. "I'm exhausted from walking on eggshells in my own house. I'm tired of feeling bad for having friends and ambitions that don't revolve around you. If you can't accept that I have a career and a social life outside this marriage, outside you, then maybe you should leave." "We're married," I whispered. "And that means what?" he shot back. "That I stay home every night, eat lasagna, and listen to you talk about lesson plans? This is my life too, Linda. I get to decide how I live it." Then he turned and went upstairs. I stood there listening to his footsteps. Closet, bathroom, the shower starting, music blasting, confident, upbeat, the soundtrack of someone excited about their evening. Something inside me went very still. Not numb, clear. I walked to our bedroom and opened the closet, pulled out suitcases, not angrily, not dramatically, methodically. Clothes first, then my books, the ones I owned before him, my laptop, jewelry my grandmother left me, photos of my family, pieces of a life that existed before I learned how to shrink. 2 hours passed in quiet zippers and drawers. Ethan never noticed. When I carried the last suitcase downstairs, the hairdryer upstairs drowned out the sound. In the kitchen, I found one of his expensive notepads, the kind with thick paper he liked. I thought about writing everything. The loneliness, the small deaths, the years of being chosen last. I didn't. I wrote one sentence. You're right, I don't like it, so I left. I placed it on the table beside the flowers I'd bought earlier that week. They were wilting now. I took one last look around the house we'd built. Then I locked the door behind me and left my keys on the hood of his car. For the first time in years, I didn't wait to see if he'd come after me. I didn't cry when I pulled out of the driveway. That surprised me. I thought I would break the moment the house disappeared in my rearview mirror, the place where I had folded myself smaller year after year, calling it compromise. But instead, there was only a strange, weightless quiet, like the pressure in my chest had finally been released. I drove without music, without thinking about where I was going beyond a way. My sister Maya answered on the second ring when I called at 12:58 a.m. Linda? Her voice sharpened instantly. What's wrong? I need a place to stay, I said. Just tonight, maybe a few days. I'll explain when I get there. There was a pause, not hesitation, calculation. The kind you make when you know someone's life just cracked open. Come, she said. The guest room's yours. Drive safe. Her apartment smelled like lavender and laundry detergent. Safety, familiarity. She handed me a glass of water before I even finished taking my shoes off. We sat on opposite ends of her couch, the room dim except for the streetlight filtering through the blinds. He told me to leave, I said finally. Saying it out loud made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. So I did. Maya didn't interrupt. She never did when it mattered. And how do you feel? She asked gently. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I don't know, I admitted. Relieved. Terrified. Ashamed that I feel relieved. She nodded. That makes sense. I slept in fits, waking up every hour, my body braced for a phone call that didn't come. I expected Ethan to call by morning. Surely he'd wake up, see the empty closet, the note. Surely he'd realize I'd actually done it. Nothing. 7 a.m., 8:30, 9:45. At 10:12, my phone buzzed. Not a call, a text. Ethan. Really, Linda? This is dramatic. Over what? Me going out? Having friends? Another followed immediately. I'm calling my mother. She deserves to know how you abandoned your husband in the middle of the night like a coward. Then, you don't even have the decency to talk to me face to face. You just run away. I stared at the screen, waiting for the guilt to arrive. It didn't. Instead, clarity settled in, quiet and sharp. There it was. Everything wrong with our marriage, condensed into angry text bubbles. It was my fault. I was dramatic. I was unreasonable. The fact that he had told me to leave didn't matter. The months of choosing someone else didn't matter. My phone rang. Ethan. I declined. It rang again. His mother. I declined. Then my own mother's name lit up the screen. Linda Marie Karishma, she said the moment I answered. What is happening? Mom, I can't do this right now. Ethan's mother just called me in tears. She says you packed up and disappeared, that Ethan is devastated. What were you thinking? The automatic assumption hit like a slap. He told me to leave, I said. So I did. Silence. You don't leave a marriage, Linda, my mother said finally. You work on it. You communicate. I tried. Another pause, heavy with doubt. What did you do? She asked. That question, what did you do, hurt more than Ethan's texts. I have to go, I said quietly. I have work tomorrow. Work, she scoffed. Your marriage is falling apart and you're worried about work? Some of us still have to show up, I said, sharper than I meant to. I hung up before she could respond. Monday morning, I stood in my classroom like nothing had happened. I wrote equations on the board. I smiled at students. I graded quizzes with hands that didn't quite feel like mine. During second period, my department head, Ms. Alvarez, knocked on my door. Linda, can you come with me for a moment? The tone made my stomach drop. In her office, she closed the door gently. I received a call this morning, she said, from Ethan's attorney. My breath caught. About what? She claims you've been emotionally abusive, that you accessed private communications illegally, that you're spreading defamatory information. I laughed once, hollow and disbelieving. That's not true. I didn't think so, Ms. Alvarez said calmly, but I needed to hear it from you. We're separating, I said. He filed first. I needed space. She studied me for a long moment. Do you have legal representation? I will. Good, she said. because if they continue making false claims involving this school, I will escalate it. When I returned to my classroom, I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. Ethan hadn't just told me to leave. He was trying to destroy the version of me that existed outside him. And for the first time since I married him, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. The pressure didn't arrive all at once. It came in layers, polite at first, then men insistent, then sharp. By Tuesday morning, Ethan's version of events had already found its way through our shared world. Friends I hadn't heard from in months had suddenly checked in with messages that sounded supportive but felt investigative. "Are you okay? Ethan says you left without warning. Marriage is hard, but disappearing like that." I stopped responding. At work, I kept my head down, taught my classes, wrote formulas on the board like nothing inside me was splintering. During lunch, I sat alone in my classroom, door closed, eating yogurt that tasted like chalk. Then Maria Chen knocked. She taught English down the hall, someone I'd always liked in a professional, distant way. She stood there holding a folder, fingers tight around the edges. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. I nodded, suddenly uneasy. She sat across from me, inhaled, then said, "I heard what's happening with Ethan." I waited. "Last August," she continued carefully, "I saw him at Antonio's, that Italian place downtown. He was with a woman, not you." My chest tightened. "Who?" She hesitated. "Lena." The room seemed to tilt. "They were close," Maria said quietly. "Too close to be co-workers. Touching. Laughing. The kind of intimacy you don't misread." "When?" I asked. "August 27th. My birthday." I stared at the wall behind her as memory rearranged itself. The late dinner he'd skipped. The excuse about a client meeting. The way he'd come home after midnight smelling like wine and unfamiliar cologne. Maria slid the folder toward me. "I wrote everything down," she said. "Dates, times, what I saw. If you need someone to testify, I will." "Why?" I asked, my voice thin. She met my eyes. "Because my ex did the same thing. Cheated for months. Then convinced everyone I was unstable when I finally left. I know what it's like when the wrong story wins." After she left, I sat there shaking, not from surprise, but from confirmation. That night, I pulled up our joint credit card statements. There it was. Antonio's Italian Restaurant. August 27th. Hotel bars. Weeknight charges. Places Ethan had told me he'd never been. I started a spreadsheet. Date. What he told me. Phone records. Charges. The pattern was undeniable. 2 days later, his attorney called. "Ms. Karishma," a clipped female voice said. "This is Jennifer Campbell, representing Ethan Karishma. You need to secure legal counsel immediately." "For what?" I asked. "Ethan has filed for divorce citing abandonment and emotional cruelty." Cruelty. The word felt surreal. "We'll be scheduling a time for you to retrieve your remaining belongings from the marital home," she continued. "Further communication should go through counsel." She hung up before I could respond. I sat on the edge of Maya's guest bed, phone heavy in my hand, heart racing. Ethan hadn't just reacted. He'd planned. I called a divorce attorney my sister's friend had used, Patricia Morgan. Her office was bright, modern, nothing like the dark intimidation I'd imagined. She was in her early 50s, silver hair cropped short, eyes sharp enough to feel like X-rays. "Tell me everything," she said once we sat down. "Start from the beginning." So I did. The distancing, Lena, the dinner, the words then leave, the note, the texts, the accusations. Patricia made notes without interrupting. "And he filed 2 days later?" she asked. "Yes." She nodded slowly. "He's trying to control the narrative." "But he told me to leave." "Do you have proof?" "No, it was just us." "Then it's your word against his," she said calmly. "And right now, he's louder." She leaned forward. "Here's what he's going to do. He'll claim abandonment. He'll ask that you continue paying shared expenses while he stays in the house. He may push for spousal support, and he'll paint you as emotionally unstable." My hands curled into fists. "Can he do that?" "He can try," she said. "Whether he succeeds depends on what we can prove." I told her about Maria, about the credit cards, the late nights. Patricia's expression sharpened. "Good. We build a timeline. Phone records, statements, everything." That night I requested our phone logs. When they arrived, the truth spilled out in numbers. October, 63 calls to Lena. September, 71. Average duration, 40 minutes. I cross-referenced dates. October 15th, the night he said he was working late. 2 calls to Lena, 1 lasting over an hour. Credit card charge at a hotel bar. I sent everything to Patricia. By Friday, we had a case. Then the email arrived. No sender name. Subject line, you deserve the truth. Inside, I work with Ethan and Lena. What they're doing isn't right. This flash drive contains emails, messages, and records. I can't come forward publicly. Please use this carefully. I didn't open it. I called Patricia. Bring it to my office, she said immediately. We assess legality first. The next morning, a tech specialist examined the files, emails, photos, messages, financial records. The first email Patricia flagged was from 18 months earlier. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Ethan's words. My hands shook. Another email, Lena's response. We have to be careful. Linda can't know. Not yet. Not yet. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, Patricia handed me water. He was planning this, she said gently. Planning how to leave you without losing anything. And when I left first, I whispered, you disrupted his plan. We filed the counterclaim the following Thursday. Infidelity, financial misuse, deception. The fallout was immediate. 17 missed calls. Ethan, his mother, unknown numbers. A text from Lena's phone appeared that night. You're ruining his life. Whatever problems you had, dragging me into this is cruel. I forwarded it to Patricia. Don't engage, she said. They're panicking. 2 days later, my mother showed up unannounced. She sat across from me, arms folded. Ethan says you've gone crazy, she said, that you're accusing him of horrible things. I didn't raise my voice. I opened my laptop, showed her the emails, the records, the dates. She read in silence. Then she covered her mouth. Oh, Linda, she whispered. I'm so sorry. For the first time since this began, someone believed me without conditions. That night, lying awake, I realized something frightening and freeing. I wasn't fighting to save my marriage anymore. I was fighting to save myself. The quiet after escalation is worse than the noise. Once the evidence was filed and the lawyers took over, there were no more explosive phone calls. No dramatic confrontations. Just a heavy, suspended stillness, like standing in the aftermath of a storm, waiting to see what it destroyed. That was when the grief finally caught up to me. Not the sharp grief of betrayal that had already burned through my chest, but the deeper one, the kind that settles into your bones, the kind that mourns not just what happened, but what never truly existed. At night, I lay awake in Maya's guest room staring at the ceiling fan as it traced slow circles above me. My body felt exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying memories, rearranging them with new context. The weekends were the hardest. No classes to teach, no students to distract me, just long hours where time stretched thin and unforgiving. I kept thinking about the woman I had been at the beginning of my marriage, how easily she laughed, how confidently she loved. I wondered when exactly she started apologizing for taking up space. One afternoon, I drove past our old house without meaning to. The curtains were drawn. Ethan's car was gone. I pulled over 2 blocks away and cried so hard my ribs hurt. Not because I wanted him back, but because I realized how thoroughly I had erased myself trying to keep him. The mediation notice arrived the following week. Court-ordered mediation. 3 weeks away. Patricia called me that evening. Start thinking about what you actually want, she said. Not what you want to take from Ethan, what you need to move forward. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and stared at the blank page. What did I want? The house? No. Too many memories trapped in its walls. Money? Half felt fair, more felt hollow. An apology? I laughed bitterly at that. Finally, I wrote one sentence. I want peace. But peace felt abstract, unmeasurable. That night, the doubt crept in, the dangerous kind. What if I'd overreacted? What if this was salvageable? What if I'd waited one more conversation, one more compromise? I opened my laptop and stared at the folder Patricia had labeled evidence. Emails, photos, messages. I clicked one without meaning to. She's so clueless, Lena had written in one message. I almost feel bad for her. The words knocked the air from my lungs. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms against my eyes, breathing through the wave of nausea. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was contempt. Still, the loneliness pressed in. Ethan had been my emergency contact, my +1, my default. For nearly a decade, he'd been the person I turned toward at the end of the day, even when he wasn't really there. Now, the space where he used to exist felt like a phantom limb. I found myself reaching for my phone, thumb hovering over his name before I stopped myself. I didn't miss him. I missed the idea of not being alone. One evening, my mother called. I've been thinking, she said softly, about everything you showed me. I waited. I didn't protect you the way I should have, she continued. I believe the version of events that made you responsible for someone else's choices. Tears blurred my vision. I'm here now, she said. Whatever happens next. After we hung up, I sat on the floor and cried, not from pain this time, but from release. Still, the darkest moment came quietly. 3 nights before mediation, I woke up from a dream where Ethan was smiling at me the way he used to, where he reached for my hand and said, I didn't mean it. Come home. I sat up in bed shaking, heart racing, tears streaming down my face. For a terrifying moment, I wanted to believe it. I wanted the nightmare to end. I wanted the comfort of familiarity, even if it was poisoned. That was when I understood how people end up staying in broken marriages, not because they don't see the damage, but because the unknown feels worse than the pain they know how to survive. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were tired, my face thinner, but there was something else there too. Resolve. I choose myself, I whispered out loud, testing the words. They didn't feel strong yet, but they felt true. And sometimes that's enough to keep going. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic confrontation. It arrived with clarity. 2 days before mediation, Patricia called me into her office again. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge of confidence in it I hadn't heard before. We have something solid, she said. Not just evidence of the affair, evidence of intent. She slid a printed email across the table. It was dated 6 months before I left. From Ethan to Lena. I'm timing this carefully. If I move too fast, I lose the house and half my savings. Linda's predictable. She won't leave unless I push her. I just need to make her uncomfortable enough. I read it once, then again. My hands didn't shake this time. So that was it. The cold precision, the calculation, the months, years, where I thought I was failing as a wife, when in reality, I was being maneuvered like a piece on a board. He wasn't just cheating, Patricia said quietly. He was engineering an exit that benefited him. And when I left first, I said slowly, I ruined it. Yes, she replied. That's why he panicked. That's why he went after your reputation. That's why he escalated so fast. Something settled inside me. Not anger. Alignment. For the first time since this began, I stopped asking why. I already had the answer. That evening, an unknown number texted me. Linda, it's Ethan. Please don't block this one. I just want to talk. I stared at the screen for a long moment before handing the phone to Patricia, who happened to be with me. She read it once and nodded. He's scared. I felt it too, not satisfaction, not triumph, but a strange, distant calm. I don't need to talk to him, I said. I know who he is now. That night, I packed my things from Maya's guest room into neat piles, not because I was leaving, because I was preparing. Preparing for mediation, preparing for the end, preparing for the version of myself that would exist afterward. On the morning of mediation, I wore a simple navy dress and flat shoes. No armor, no performance, just myself. Neutral Ground Mediation Services was all glass and soft lighting, designed to make pain feel polite. Patricia met me outside. Remember, she said, adjusting her briefcase, I'll do the talking. You only speak if you want to. Inside, Ethan was already there with his attorney. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, his confidence muted. For a brief second, our eyes met. I didn't feel rage. I felt distance. The mediator explained the process. Positions were stated. Ethan's attorney went first. My client is seeking an equitable distribution of assets, she said smoothly. Given the emotional distress caused by Mrs. Karishma's abandonment, we're requesting a 60-40 split in Mr. Karishma's favor. Primary possession of the marital home and spousal support for 2 years. Patricia didn't react. She opened her folder calmly. Our counteroffer is straightforward, she said. 50-50 split, sale of the house. Each party keeps their own retirement accounts. No spousal support. Clean break. That's unacceptable, Ethan's attorney snapped. Patricia slid the email across the table. Then we go to trial, she said, where this becomes public record. Ethan's face drained of color. The mediator called for a caucus. While they stepped out, Patricia turned to me. You're in control now, she said. Not because you're punishing him, because you stopped protecting him. When Ethan returned, his posture was different, smaller, careful. He didn't look at me when he spoke. I'll accept the 50-50 split, he said quietly. No support. Patricia nodded. We'll need terms for the house. I'll stay until it sells, he added quickly. I'll cover the mortgage. I shrugged. I hadn't wanted the house anyway. The agreement was drafted, signed. When we stood to leave, Ethan finally looked at me. I never thought you'd actually leave, he said softly. I thought you'd fight harder to stay. I met his eyes. I did, I replied. For years. You just weren't paying attention. And that was the moment I knew, truly knew, that I was done. Not bitter, not broken. Just finished. The fallout didn't explode. It collapsed. Quietly, systematically, in ways that didn't make headlines but rewrote entire lives. Once the mediation agreement was submitted, the narrative Ethan had worked so hard to control unraveled on its own. Not because I corrected it, not because I defended myself publicly, but because the truth finally had room to breathe. Within a week, his attorney stopped posturing. The aggressive emails turned procedural, polite, short. The confidence drained out of every line. Ethan moved back into the house alone. I heard about it secondhand, through mutual friends who no longer sounded certain when they spoke his name. The house, once full of curated ambition and social gatherings, became quiet. Lena stopped coming around. Her car disappeared from the driveway. At his firm, things shifted. The same coworker who had once laughed with him over drinks now avoided eye contact in meetings. Whispers traveled faster than loyalty. HR didn't announce anything publicly, but promotions stalled. Opportunities paused. Affairs don't stay secret when paperwork gets involved, especially when company servers and expense reports are part of the record. Lena transferred teams, then departments, then companies. By the time the divorce paperwork finalized, she was gone. Ethan's family reached out next. First his sister. "I didn't know," she said on the phone, voice small. "None of us did." I didn't argue, I didn't explain. "I hope you're okay," she added. "I am," I replied and realized I meant it. His mother didn't call. That silence spoke louder than words. Meanwhile, my life grew quieter in a different way. I found a small apartment overlooking a park. 1 bedroom, big windows, morning light that spilled across the floor like an invitation. The first night there, I slept for 10 uninterrupted hours. No phone buzzing, no waiting, no calculating my worth based on someone else's attention. When I returned to the house one final time, with Patricia's approval and my sister beside me, Ethan wasn't there. He'd arranged to be gone. I packed only what mattered. Books, clothes, family photos, a chipped mug I loved. I left the furniture, the wedding gifts, the art we'd chosen together. They felt like artifacts from a life that wasn't mine anymore. On the last day of the 60-day waiting period, Patricia called. "It's done," she said. "You're officially divorced." I was standing at my kitchen window, watching joggers move through the park below. "How do you feel?" she asked. I waited for the wave of emotion. It didn't come. "I feel free," I said finally. That afternoon, an email arrived. A teaching opportunity I'd applied for months earlier and forgotten about, an international summer program in Costa Rica. 6 weeks teaching science to high school students from around the world. Ethan would have hated it. Too humid, too remote, too disruptive to the carefully optimized life he'd been building. I accepted immediately. Before I left, I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Remember. Screenshots, emails, timelines. Evidence I'd once thought I'd need to remind myself I wasn't crazy. I deleted it all. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I didn't need proof anymore. At the airport, my sister hugged me tight. "You're different," she said. "I know," I replied. "I like her." 2 years later, I accepted a permanent position at an international school in Portugal. I adopted a golden retriever named Newton, goofy and loyal and incapable of pretending to be something he wasn't. I dated, carefully, honestly. Men who showed up, who didn't make me compete with their ambitions for basic respect. Through mutual friends, I heard that Ethan and Lena lasted 18 months. They didn't end dramatically. They just unraveled. She emailed me once, a long message filled with apologies and regret. My reply was short. "I forgive you. I just don't want you in my life." And I meant it. The fallout didn't destroy him because I wanted revenge. It destroyed the version of him that depended on my silence. And that was enough. There's a version of this story where the ending is louder, where I stand in a courtroom victorious, where Ethan begs, where karma announces itself with fireworks and witnesses. This isn't that story. This one ends quietly. It ends with me waking up in a sunlit apartment, a dog pressing his nose against my hand because breakfast is late. It ends with lesson plans written for students who don't know my past and don't need to. It ends with a life that feels spacious instead of tight. For a long time, I thought strength looked like endurance, like staying, like understanding, like shrinking myself so someone else could feel bigger. I was wrong. Real strength was walking away the moment I realized love wasn't supposed to feel like negotiation. That respect wasn't something you earn by being convenient. That partnership doesn't require silence to survive. The hardest part wasn't leaving Ethan. It was leaving the version of myself who believed being chosen meant being quiet. If you're listening to this and recognizing pieces of your own life, the uneaten dinners, the late nights that don't add up, the way your needs have been reframed as flaws. Here's what I want you to know. You don't have to wait for proof to trust how something feels. You don't have to stay until the damage becomes undeniable. And you don't owe anyone your disappearance to make their life easier. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do isn't fighting harder to be loved. It's choosing herself when love asks her to disappear. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I finally started loving myself. And that decision didn't break my life. It gave me one.